Welcome to the 32nd class of Haiti, the most important country in the world. Now, I'm going to be talking about Baby Doc, Jean-Claude Duvalier, and once again, I am astounded by the lack of information on this world leader on YouTube. So I don't know if I'm going to be like one of the most reputable sources of people talking about him. He's a very important figure. He's a very controversial figure, and so I want to talk about him and a little bit of his history. As a reminder, this is a class that I teach, and I really suggest you take notes. You know, stay as active as you possibly can while learning this stuff. And let's get to the class. Students and friends, I am Professor Sky. My name is perhaps known to you. I have undertaken to teach about Haiti. I want curiosity and thirst for complex understanding to reign in this class. I'm working to help that happen. Unite yourselves, students, and learn with me for the same cause. Today's class is, of course, about Baby Doc. There he is in a picture where his father is shooting guns. So 1971. That's the year my brother was born, the year that Papa Doc died and his son took over. There's a few like sad facts about this transition. Here's the first one. This is the only truly smooth transition of power in the history of Haiti. If you've been following along with this class, you know there's been a lot of military coups, there's been a lot of military takeovers, there's been a lot of questioned elections, there's been a lot of difficulty. But this transition, because it was so authoritarian, was actually relatively smooth. The thing to understand about Baby Doc is his name is really misleading. I don't know. I mean, baby, he wasn't really a baby, okay? He was 19 years old. 19 years old. The Constitution of Haiti at the time, you know, we've had a lot of constitutions, but at the time, you had to be 40 years old. So they changed the Constitution to make it 20 years old. And then they declared that Baby Doc was 20. So a lot of my students are 19. None of them felt that they would be ready to take over as a leader of a world power. And then there's the Doc. This is where things get tricky because Papa Doc was a doctor. He was a very real doctor who did very real good work with people in the countrysides. There's a lot of things that he did that were very good, and he certainly was very accomplished, and he certainly was very driven, and he certainly was very ambitious. And of all the things you can say about him, he was very cunning and very smart. So, Baby Doc. Baby Doc, that's not the case with Baby Doc. He is famous for not being the best student. The thing is, if his teachers didn't give him good grades or didn't take care of him, they ran the risk of being abducted, of being jailed, of being killed, or at the very least of being fired. You can't tell the president of life, the professor of energy, that his son is not the most brilliant boy in the whole school when he's 5 years old, when he's 6 years old, when he's 7 years old, when he becomes a man. You can't tell him he's not the smartest man. It's part of the problem of empire and kingdoms is that you often have the next generation failing to live up to the standard of the previous generation. The way that the differences between these reigns are often drawn is a fairly simple one, that Papa Doc was mostly concerned with power and Baby Doc, money. As I ask my students, when you are leading the Haitian people, what is missing from power and money? Haiti itself. I just often think of Tommy Boy, think of Baby Doc. So there were people around Baby Doc who helped him to rule, which again, okay, every single part of this whole class could be a movie. There definitely could be a Papa Doc movie in which you study this ambitious, frail young man as he becomes a hero to the people and eventually becomes a paranoid dictator living in a palace. The story writes itself. The Baby Doc, the little guy who was thrust into power, has so much money, And when he first takes power, he's surrounded by people who are very happy to help and help to drive things, like his mother, Simone, Mama Doc, or Cambron, who was a holdover from Papa Doc's regime, who also helped to organize and run the country. He replaces the Tonton Macoute with the leopards. And I don't know. There's when it comes to like symbolism of different generations, the Tonton Macoute were just inherently more threatening. They could be anybody, they could be anywhere, and they were everywhere. This these outfits, I don't know. They are a little bit more ostentatious, and I think a little bit less threatening, and certainly less inauspicious. They're certainly more clear. And he himself would often get dressed up in this gear as well. So throughout his life, throughout his reign, he stole 40% of the government expenditures. So I just had fun, okay? So let's think of it this way. It might be hard to even conceive of the level of thievery. The term, in case you don't remember, is kleptocracy, which is the term for when a state steals most of the money that it gets. So if we're thinking about government expenditures, 40%, can you imagine if Duvalier, let's say he gave as much to education, the percentage of the budget in education as America does, right? Wouldn't that be amazing if the president of Haiti was able to give as much of a percentage of its expenditures to education as America does? Don't you think that would really help it on its way? Well, I got to tell you, America only spends 19% of its budget on education. So, what if we imagine what if we imagined instead of taking 40% of all the money and putting it directly in his own pockets, what if we imagined instead he took double what America did, what America does for education, and gave that to Haiti? Just imagine the benefit it would have to the people. But instead, it went to himself. Now, he's able to fool the West. All sorts of newspapers, everyone came out about what a great reformer he is and how great he's going to be for business. And a lot of it's because he's really helping to emphasize the rural and urban divide. The story of the Duvalier reign is very much a continuation of the American occupation. The American occupation de-regionalized Haiti and made it much more urban, put a lot more emphasis on the cities. If you remember, traditionally, uh, Haiti was very agricultural, was very rural. Many people living according to their means, on very little money, on very small plots, and living happily as they can, in the countryside. America helped to further centralize Haiti, and then both the Duvaliers would end up pushing more and more people towards the cities, where the poverty becomes concentrated. Okay, where are we? Where's the where's the class? Now I can't find it. Did I close it? What's going on here? Oh, I see what's happening here. All right, 1 second here. All right, 1 second here. I just gotta figure out, I guess I gotta pause it again. Good gravy. What is going on here? So, because he's able to put more people in the cities and have them make more products, he is able to convince America, convince France, convince Canada that he is making this progress. But all he is really succeeding in doing is destroying the economy. There's the economic comparison between the Dominican Republic in terms of how much people make in a year versus how it was in Haiti. And you can see how it has just gone down precipitously throughout the years. Then there's this weird, so I'm going to be doing a class all about immigration, the story of what are called the boat people coming to America. But this little detail from this book, Haiti, The Aftershocks of History by Laurent Dubois, the main text that I use in this class, um, is So, my Zoom is like just broken. One second. Is what is They try to outline the irony. As foreign aid groups struggled to find their way, for many Haitians, the most important source of external assistance came not from any well meaning outsiders, but from their own connections and relatives abroad. By the early 1980s, Haitians themselves had become the country's most significant export. The 3 decades of Duvalier's rule were a time of massive exodus on a scale of breadth never seen in Haitian history. In one of the many ironic twists of the Duvalier saga, it was money coming in from Haitians driven into exile that in many ways propped up the economy during Baby Dark's rule. In 1960, remittances from immigrants overseas had made up 5% of all money coming into the country. By the early 1980s, that had increased to one-third of the total amount. So, do you see the irony here? Because there were so many people fleeing the economic disaster and human disaster of the Duvalier reign, because so many of them left and earned money and sent it back, it helped to keep the Duvalier in power. History can be cruel. Part of the reason, part of the hope, was that Haiti would be what they called a new Taiwan. And this is where we really have to emphasize a couple of things. One, how did Haiti make America happy? They made America happy by saying they would fight against communism, right? Just whenever it was useful, they would say they would fight against communism. And the Duvalier, both of them basically blackmailed America by saying, well, if we don't get aid, then we might turn communist. But also becoming a new Taiwan, which means a new center for sweatshops. Let me give you an example, okay? This is coming from a website called Haiti Liberté. By the way, sometimes people comment that I should be pronouncing it Haiti instead of Haiti. I don't disagree, but I'm making this for an American audience. And if I said Haiti, most Americans wouldn't know what I'm saying. They don't know that's how it's supposed to be pronounced. So I apologize for that. All about the production of baseballs in Haiti and US imperialism. So what I'm going to do is this. This is going to be an example product. Throughout this time, many companies were filling into Haiti, building sweatshops so that they could make products because it was closer than China, it's closer than Taiwan, it's 500 miles from America. So if we can have sweatshops filled with underpaid laborers making products for America so that Americans can make most of the money off of it, that is very advantageous for us. And Haiti became a manufacturing center. But of course, under these very questionable, very uh, very unpleasant living conditions. So let's take baseball as an example. Maybe you don't know about the history of baseball, but this swing and this baseball over here, this is some of the most important stuff in the history of American baseball. You see, there was a guy named Babe Ruth, one of the best players of all time. Played for the Boston Red Sox, and then he got traded. I think he played for, I think the Yankees. He played for the New York Yankees. He's considered by many to be the best player of all time. And he had a home run record. He hit the most home runs, which is where you hit the ball out of the park. It's the hardest thing to do in baseball. And he hit the most home runs of all time. In the 1970s, it became clear that a fairly timid black athlete was going to break the record. This was a huge moment in America. It's where it had to reckon with the results of desegregation. Baseball was one of the first things in America to be desegregated when Jackie Robinson joined the Brooklyn Dodgers, and it was America's pastime, and this was a huge deal. Hank Aaron got death threats all the time from people who didn't want him to break the record of the great white Babe Ruth. Although there is actually a pretty fair argument to be made that he was perhaps mixed race, but still he's considered white. So this moment, this is it's famous. Everybody who knows baseball knows this beautiful moment when Hank Aaron hits this home run. But like This symbol of like civil rights, of integration, of progress, made in the USA, sewn in Haiti, because baseballs were Haitian. And if you remember, baseball, the sport itself, on the island of Hispaniola, the island of Hispaniola is one of the greatest baseball islands in the world, except it's all from the Dominican side. I would say about three or four of the best players of all time are from the Dominican Republic, and probably five or six of the best players of all time have Dominican ancestry. Like it is unbelievable. But in Haiti, partly because of the American occupation, partly because of just personal taste, baseball was never really played in Haiti. So, how symbolic is it that they don't get to enjoy the fruit of the sport, but they have to do the labor? From the 1960s to the 1990s, they were the largest producer of baseball in the world. If you see Reggie Jackson hitting those three home runs in that World Series, every single one of those baseballs was stitched in Haiti. 20 million a year from factories in Port-au-Prince. And this was a byproduct of the rural exodus. The people who a century earlier might have been on a lakou tending to their own farms, tending to their own families, might now be there hand stitching baseballs. They were six times cheaper than Puerto Rican labor, which was, I guess, $1.80 an hour. So they got paid 30 cents an hour to do 180 stitches on a baseball. Hand stitched, and they sold for $15. Who pocketed all that money? The Spalding Corporation, the Rawling Corporation, the corporations that made it, not the people. But the companies started leaving in 1987. Well, everybody, I'm going to spoil something for you. The Duvalier reign is going to end in 1986. So, really, it could not be more clear that American and Western exploitation of Haitian labor could continue as long as there was an authoritarian and calming government in place. That the Duvalier helped American interests, not just in fighting communism, but in promoting this kind of globalized marketplace, which invariably benefits the rich at the expense of the poor. I saw a website somewhere that didn't even know what they were saying. Up until 1987, Rawlings baseballs were manufactured in Haiti, but sensing political instability in the island country, Rawlings opened up a second factory in the friendly Central American country of Costa Rica. This move proved to be a wise one for Rawlings, as increasing political tension forced Rawlings to shut down their Haiti factory in 1990. So that's the story. You know, it's a story about places like this, like the Cité Soleil, which is often used as the example of the Haitian city. It is representative of urban poverty and overpopulation. If you read about it in Wikipedia, it tells the whole story. It began in 1958, right as Duvalier took power, 52 families. But then what slowly started happening is there'd be fires in other places, in other slums, and those people didn't have anywhere to go, so they went into what was then called Cité Simone, named after the first wife, after Mama Doc, right? 1972, a huge fire near Port-au-Prince set up more people until eventually there were like hundreds of thousands of people in this little area that has always been impoverished. And it is often just used as the example of where Haiti is in the most trouble. You see this article, you see this article, you see this article. It is constantly there. And importantly, the next major leader we're going to be studying, Jean-Baptiste Aristide, was actually born here, but we're not there yet. I have mentioned in a class, which I have yet to release, about the history of the Dominican Republic and Haiti, but I need to talk about it here. I really need to talk about this here. I need to talk about what is called the Beatty. The Beatty is a term for temporary sugar harvest places, you know, like little tiny shacks. And the people who work there get paid $21 a week, and they can't really leave, and they don't really have any papers, and they don't really have any nation. Lately, the Dominican Republic has been changing the laws to say that you cannot be a citizen of the Dominican Republic unless your parents were legal citizens at their birth. So it keeps on going forth back and back and back. And it's created this kind of weird labor situation where you have all this sugar being harvested by Haitians who cross the border just to find work. Oh, okay, one second. Screen sharing is paused. I don't know what's going on. But it's hard to even understand how cruel this whole situation is because it's not just that that the descendants of enslaved people who were taken to this island in order to cut sugar, who broke free, who have been fighting against the government generation after generation after generation, trying not to be thrown back onto the plantation, trying not to be thrown back into the sugar fields, who've been trying to do absolutely anything to avoid cutting goddamn sugarcane, end up now actually working as hard as they can to get that same job and have the same lack of freedom, the same lack of movement, and the same mistreatment. It's described quite well in Dubois' book. And perhaps the most cynical profiteering of all, the Haitian government worked out a deal with the Dominican Republic to earn money from the emigration of laborers who wanted to work on Dominican sugar plantations. Driven to leave their country by increasingly difficult economic conditions, Haitian workers found themselves indentured to their own government. In the late 1950s and early 60s, migrant workers had to pay the Haitian government the significant sum of $10, about $100 today, to gain the right to go to the Dominican Republic. The plantation owners there paid an additional $15 to the Haitian government for each worker, and subsequently deposited half of each worker's wages into special accounts held by the Haitian state. Like much of the other money that went into the government coffers, these fees mostly flowed to Duvalier and his close assistants. By 1981, the Haitian government was charging Dominican planters a fee of $182 per Haitian worker, collecting nearly $3 million that went into hidden accounts. The garnishment of wages made it extremely difficult for Haitian laborers to do what many had intended to do, work in the Dominican Republic for a while, and then return home with savings to buy land. Instead, they were left destitute and stranded. Do you see how terrible this is? Do you see the situation that they were forced to live in? That they had to pay for the right to leave the country. No, I don't know. Geez, I'm doing numbers. I'm not doing thumbs up. You had to pay for the right to leave the. Would you? What is this? How do I get this away? I don't want that reaction. Stop the reaction. You had to pay for the right to work in another country. You only had to work in another country because the government is failing you. So you have to pay your government to work in another country because your government is failing you. That other country has to pay your government because your government is failing you. That other country then gives half of your money to that government that's supposed to be holding on to it for you, but they end up just keeping it. Which means you have paid for the right to cut sugar. You have paid for the right to lose your autonomy. You have paid for the right to be in the same situation your great, 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 great grandfather was in, except you don't you're not seen at all. The injustice, the indignity of what you are suffering is not even seen. You are working basically for free while other people are getting rich off of your misery. If that's not a version of slavery, I don't know what is. This, according to some figures I saw, two-thirds of the Dominican Republic's export was sugar. And they called it Haitian work. They thought it was beneath them. They thought they needed the Haitians as immigrants because who wants to cut sugar? It was Haitian work. After all these centuries of work and effort and desire and need for dignity, they are still just cutting sugar for other people to benefit. We then get to the story of his wife, Baby Doc's wife. One of the most interesting figures in this class. I'm telling you, this movie, oh, you could just have a whole movie on her, actually. Her name is Michèle Bennett Duvalier, and she was actually married. Well, anyways, you see on the left there, that's Papa Doc, right? So obviously she married his son, Baby Doc. Okay. Why am I showing you this slide? Anyways, there's this guy, Alix Pasque. I don't know why I'm telling you this story. Back in 1958, there was Pasque's invasion. Maybe you remember that story. I told it to you in the last class, where three mulatto elites from Haiti and five Americans, people have been trained, like went to try to take over the government. And Duvalier thought there was 200, but then one of them had to get cigarettes and he got captured and he was like, no, 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 there's only eight of us. You don't remember this story? It doesn't really matter. Anyways, Michèle Bennett married the son of the guy on the left, right? Who killed Pasque. Except, what if I told you that was her second marriage? Her first marriage was to the son of the person on the right. She had two husbands. One of, this is so complicated. She had two husbands. Her first father in law tried to kill her second father in law, and her second father in law successfully killed her first father in law. If that doesn't sound like the most sad incident of Haitian history, what can you possibly do? She divorced him and she decided to marry Baby Doc. She decided. She's that level. She knew her beauty, she knew her intelligence, her drive. There are some people who could just will their way into positions, and she did that. She got her mother in law out of the picture. She helped to consolidate power. Again, this is just ripe for movies where she pushed out Mama Doc to become essentially the new Mama Doc, and she increased the skimming and the theft. Stories of taking up to 20 million out of a $22 million bit of international aid. Now, this is not substantiated, but it is said that her family business that exported coffee also exported cocaine. I don't know how true that is. I know that's been alleged. And this image, this moment is vital. Their marriage is vital. They were married on May 27th, 1980. The $3 million wedding was the most lavish spectacle of the Duvalier years. Michèle imported a Givenchy gown and a hairdresser from Paris for the ceremony. The couple was feted with a 101 gun salute and $100,000 worth of fireworks. And the poor, 80% of Haiti's people earn about $100 a year, were provided with free soup and rum for this august occasion. It was so beautiful, remembers one guest, but in retrospect, that was the beginning of the end. The spending never stopped. Jimmy Carter, American president, tried to push back against the Duvalier. He tried his best to push against Baby Doc. He tried to work for human rights and for less kleptocracy. But when Reagan got into power, Baby Doc knew it would be easier. He knew all he had to do was talk about communism. And it was really tough for the people of Haiti because he did crack down more. There were more human rights abuses. He was more authoritarian, more dictatorial after the election of Reagan in 1980. And just remember, Haiti seems suddenly to have leapt from the 18th century to the 20th, wrote a Washington Post reporter 5 months after Baby Doc took over, all the way back in 1971. There was all this optimism. But this would ultimately lead to the end. Uh, one of my favorite quotes from Dubois is the first step towards a dictatorship's collapse is when it decides to offer a few token reforms, which it had to do after a pregnant woman was beaten to death at a protest. This ended up sparking a lot of anger. He lost the support of the Tonton Macoute. He lost support of the secret society of the Bizongo, and that was it. It led to the end of the Duvalier reign and this famous photo of them escaping in a car. After stealing all that money from all those impoverished people, they would be exiled and they would live in in the coast of France. They'd live right there. They just live a life of luxury in with all their stolen money. They just got to live on the beach in France for the rest of their days. This is how they summarize it in Dubois, and I can't do a better job than him. 30 years of Duvalier rule left behind a devastated country. As many as 1 million Haitians fled into exile. The treasury was empty. The civil institutions that had previously provided an alternate means of organizing Haitian society had largely been demolished or absorbed by the state. Haiti was still burdened by crushing foreign debt and battered by foreign investments in its affairs. And while international investment and aid had helped to build up some aspects of the country's infrastructure, what remained of the state had little capacity to maintain it. The only true functioning institution that Duvalier left behind was a massive military apparatus. By the early 1980s, perhaps as many as 300,000 individuals were incorporated into the Tonton Macoute hierarchy. The army, meanwhile, had long ago been purged of its opposition elements and was now composed of men who had loyally served the dictator. The militia chiefs and the army officers had little desire to let go of the social and political power that the regime had given them, and they retained tremendous influence even after Jean-Claude Duvalier was gone. So that's the story. That's what was left. A a much more urbanized Haiti was left in the wake of the Duvalier, a much poorer Haiti, uh, Haiti with more of an emphasis on militarism, less of emphasis on education. And for the rest of the class, we're going to try to untangle as best we can because it's really hard right now. It's hard at this point. We're at the point of history where it's hard to find um, non-conflicting news sources on the things we're going to be talking about. But we're going to get to it. So thank you for staying along with me. You can smash the like bucket. We started a long time ago, and we're going to keep going. All right, there's the camera.